Donald Trump's Arctic push is heating up. The White House is digging further into how to take over the world's largest island. I'm Ben Mulrooney. The West Block starts right now.
We need Greenland.
As the U.S. president fixates on grabbing Greenland, what are the local military capabilities? We speak with a former Danish patrol ship officer. And this year has started off with a bang, mostly thanks to Donald Trump. What's more to come? We find out the expected top geopolitical risks of 2026. Donald Trump's takeover threats of Greenland have gone from taunting to terrifying. There are real possibilities being mulled over in Washington about how the Arctic territory could become American turf through money or military means. The U.S. is looking at purchasing the world's largest island outright, but it could go another route. America already has deals with the Republic of the Marshall Islands, the Federated States of Micronesia, and the Republic of Palau. That type of agreement is called a Compact of Free Association, which includes assistance with finances and defense. Militarily, the U.S. had a significant presence in Greenland after the Second World War, and that started with Canada. In 1940, Canada had military plans at the ready to defend Greenland. That April, the fall of Denmark left its colony island a vulnerable, unoccupied territory, one rich in a unique mineral needed for warplanes at the time. Canada quickly prepared to swoop in to protect those mines from falling into German hands. The operation was called Force X. Secret Department of Defense documents called for materials and equipment. Letters were drafted with northern shipping instructions. Telegrams flew back and forth. Ottawa was pushing suppliers for special cold weather clothing needed, handcuffs, even napkin tables. It was a different time. Costs were established, advanced party gear was ordered, and pistols issued to soldiers heading to Greenland. But in May of 1940, as quickly as it started, Force X was dissolved. Why? The U.S. stepped in. U.S. President Roosevelt pressed Prime Minister Mackenzie King to back away from Greenland. And by the end of World War II, the American military had 17 facilities on the island, only one of which is still being used today. Joining us now to talk about the military angle in Greenland is Kenneth Ohlenschlaeger Buhl. He's a former commander of the Royal Danish Navy and currently teaches at the University of Southern Denmark. Sir, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Now, you spent 40 years in the Danish Armed Forces, and now you teach international law. Can I first get your personal reaction to Donald Trump's threats to taking over Greenland?
Well, I think that is very much unfortunate because people in Greenland do not want to become part of the United States. They say very clearly they don't want to become Americans. They want to be Greenlanders. They have, of course, an affiliation with Denmark because they were until 1953 a Danish colony, and after the new constitution, Greenland became part of the Danish kingdom. So we have had good relations in general with Greenland, but of course there have also been some cases and incidents over the years. But I think we are very much improving in our relations right now.
Well, Trump has said that he would be the arbiter of any limits to his own authority. And he said, quote, "I don't need international law." What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think that's very unfortunate because I think that until now, the United States has very much been promoting international law. They all, until now, been speaking about the rule-based world order. And the United States has, in fact, benefited very well from this rule-based world order because it has made a world that, to some extent, benefits the United States in its relation with other nations.
What do you think this disregard for international law could lead to as far as ripple effects in the future?
Well, it could, and I think that the current actions they have taken in Venezuela, even though very few people in my part of the world is going to shed any tears on the downfall on their dictator, I think that it was not the right way to do it. So I think it demonstrates, you could say, disrespect for international law, and also the way that they have attacked these so-called drug boats in the Caribbean Sea.
Well, let's look at this from the military standpoint. Stephen Miller, Trump's aide, declined to rule out the use of military force to take Greenland. Talk to me about some of the potential scenarios about how the U.S. could possibly use force.
Well, the interesting thing is that I had a workshop with some American colleagues in January this year, and at that point, Trump had rejuvenated his interest in Greenland, and they were probably saying for fun, yeah, we could probably use some of our U.S. Marine Corps that are trained in Arctic warfare, and indeed, the U.S. Marine Corps very often go to our neighbor in Norway and train Arctic warfare every year. So I would expect if they were going to do that, they would exactly bring in a Marine Corps expeditionary force, and they would probably go to, for Nuuk, the capital, because Nuuk is very much the strategic center of gravity in Greenland. The government is there, the Danish Arctic Command is there. There's a harbor, there's an airport, about half of the population live in Nuuk. So I think that would what they would aim for. There might also be other places like Ilulissat, the next largest city, Kangerlussuaq, the major airport in Greenland, and maybe also what we call Station North, where the Danish armed forces have a very important base that patrols the northern and eastern part of Greenland.
Well, we're looking at that from the perspective of the Americans. Miller also said that no one would fight the U.S. over Greenland. Do you subscribe to that? If the Americans came in, would there be some sort of counteraction?
I would think there would be. Actually, in Denmark, we have had since 1952 what we call the Royal Decree, whereby Danish armed forces, if our territory or if our forces outside the territory come under attack, we are under the obligation to respond as vigorously as we can without any further instructions and without waiting for instructions.
You see it happens and you just have to go. Well, Denmark also recently spent about 13 billion euros on security in Greenland. Do you know what that was used for?
Well, we are in a process of upscaling. We have 4 Arctic patrol frigates. I used to serve on them back in 1997 as an operations officer, but they are overdue for replacement. But otherwise, they are very capable ships for sailing in these kinds of waters. And we have decided to buy 5 new. We are going to buy drones. We are talking about establishing what we call an Arctic Ranger battalion or something like that. And we have also started up training the local population in very basic military, what we call, so they can have the very basic soldiers. But we're probably going to build on that, so we will have some kind of home guard up there. And then, of course, we have the sled patrol in the north that is more or less maintaining our sovereignty in the northeastern part of Greenland, which is very thinly populated. So that's also a very important role. And then we have also planned to buy maritime patrol aircraft, which is probably going to be the P-8 Poseidon, provided that we'll still maintain friendly relations with the U.S.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned your time on an Arctic patrol frigate. I'd love for you to tell our viewers, what is it like patrolling that region?
Well, it's a very harsh environment, and I had to learn the hard way that this is completely different from what I knew. I'm a submariner by trade, and I've been sailing in internal Danish waters before that. But this is can be a very dangerous place to navigate, because all the charts are not really, show exactly how things are. So you need to have a lot of experience to go around up there. And then, of course, you have all the ice. Even though we had global warming, there's still a lot of ice up there. And for instance, on the east coast of Greenland, it's only accessible around 2 months every year because of the ice coming down from the Arctic.
Well, Commander, we thank you very much for your time today.
You're welcome.
What's next on Donald Trump's world wish list? According to researchers at the Eurasia Group, America is in, quote, the throes of a political revolution, making that country lead their list of top risks for 2026. Joining us now is Gerald Butts, former principal secretary to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and current vice chair of the Eurasia Group. Jerry, great to see you today.
Great to be here, Ben. Happy New Year to you and your viewers.
Thank you very much. All right, your group does an annual list of top risks, and this year's issues relating to the U.S. or Donald Trump landed in 5 of your top 9. Is that unusual? Did it surprise you?
Well, it's becoming more and more usual, Ben, but it's definitely new. When we started doing this 20 years ago, it was mostly about what risks were happening elsewhere in the world that should cause North American-based American and Canadian investors pause for concern. And more it's become about what risks the United States is generating that should cause everybody concern, especially here in Canada.
All right, well, let's dig in and start with number 1, what you call the U.S. political revolution. What do you mean by that, and why is it the top threat?
Well, it's a top threat because of the dynamic I just described, that we're accustomed to having the United States be a shock absorber of political risk, not a generator of it. And that one change in the architecture of geopolitics changes everything, so that the United States can't be depended upon anymore to solve problems elsewhere. You've got half of the United States that can't stand the other half of the United States, and they each think the other is a bigger threat than any country or group outside of the United States. And that's changed the way they orient themselves toward allies and adversaries alike around the world.
At number 2 is everything running on electrons, from artificial intelligence to drones. Number 3 is the Monroe Doctrine, flashing back to the Monroe Doctrine, U.S. supremacy over the Western Hemisphere. Do you see the doctrine going further in 2026?
Well, we've already seen it go further in 2026. You know, we said in the report that nobody would feel the consequences of the change in the United States more acutely than Canada and Canadians would, but the United States quickly upped the ante there, and I think there are probably 29 million Venezuelans that would disagree with that characterization now. We expect to see this orientation deepen in the United States because it's structural.
Number 4 is many European countries being led by unpopular or weak leaders, with Washington rooting for their collapse. Number 5 is Russia. Number 6 is Trump's business alliances. Tell us about that one.
Well, look, I mean, I think it's an open secret in global circles these days that the way to get ahead in the United States is to help Donald Trump and his immediate family and his immediate associates get ahead very materially. And that, of course, monkeys around with rules-based order. If we have an international order that's based on deals rather than rules, we've got a very different world we're living in.
Yeah, I never thought we'd live in a world where the enrichment of a president to the tune of billions of dollars would be normalized the way it has. We just kind of accept it as that's how it is now.
Well, some presidents, for sure, but not the United States president. And that's the truly new thing here, that the United States is behaving a lot, or its government is behaving a lot more like states we've grown accustomed to seeing autocratic and dictatorial states behave.
Yeah, I'm used to living in a world where politicians make their money after they leave office, but I guess this is the new normal in 2026. Let's move on to number 7. 7 is China's deflationary spiral. 8 is AI. 9 is close to Canada's heart. What you call zombie USMCA, or the old NAFTA. Why zombie?
Yeah, well, it's a deal that's, I know, close to your heart and your family's heart, Ben, as your dad played such a huge role in it, and we probably wouldn't have had the free trade agreement, let alone the NAFTA agreement, without him. And I'm sad to say that it's become a bit of a living dead agreement where it still exists on paper, and the rules are there in black and white, but they aren't going to be enforced because the United States is never again going to sign off on an independent third-party dispute resolution mechanism, which as you know very well, was the breaking point and the agreement with the Bush administration in the first place, that your father, Prime Minister Mulroney, would have walked away from the deal without it. And it's hard for me to see a scenario in which Trump agrees to it continuing.
Yeah, I remember Dad talking about that often, how essential it was to the deal, how hard it was to get it over the line, and without it, we wouldn't have had any free trade to speak of in the way that we know it today. What do you think the likelihood is, Jerry, of some version of this deal being moving past the finish line?
Well, there's nothing I'd like more in 2026 than to be proven wrong about this, Ben, but I think the likelihood is low. I think we'll end up with a kind of annual recertification of the deal, if I could put it that way. And that's largely because the deal that Trump would want, Canada wouldn't want to sign on to, and it wouldn't be good for Canadians. So I suspect it would be very difficult for the Prime Minister and the government to agree to it.
Yeah, and I think most Canadians, regardless of political stripes, agree with the argument that no deal is better than a bad deal. What do you think a good deal would look like, generally speaking?
Well, I think a good deal would look a lot like the current deal, and it would look a lot like the original deal. And it's been core to Donald Trump's political project. People forget this now because so much of his more recent rhetoric has been about China. But if you go back to the 2016 campaign, his campaign, especially in the key states and places like Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania, was all about how the Clintons had bartered away, had given away the jobs of middle-class workers in the steel and auto industry to Mexico because of NAFTA, and that he was the president who was finally going to fix that. That's core to who he is. That's idea, whether you believe it or not, that the middle class in the United States was screwed by free trade, and in particular by the NAFTA agreement. So it's hard for him to peel back on that.
Yeah, well, I just wish he would remember what he said after he signed the last deal, which was it was the greatest trade deal of all time.
Yeah, I was there.
But he doesn't have that long a memory on certain things. Hey, Jerry Butts, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Great to see you, Ben. Take care.